What's the big reason cultivars are problematic? Well, many cultivars are propagated by tissue culture, cuttings, and grafting. All are methods of cloning. So someone in Dallas could be buying the same exact plant, genetically speaking, as someone in Boston. This ensures consumers and landscape designers know what they're getting from the nursery shelf. But this loss of genetic diversity may affect a plant's ability to adapt to climate change, disease, pests, and more, including supporting local wildlife. Now, many cultivars are sterile, like a lot of those new coneflowers. So provide no benefit to adult pollinators because they don't have pollen, or the pollen is hidden, or birds. If you don't have pollen and you don't have access to pollen, you can't produce seed. They're not getting pollinated. There's no fruiting. Plants bred for changes in leaf color will also likely reduce the number of pollinator young, larvae, caterpillars that can eat the foliage. So think purple leaf plants like those newer 9-barks that were all the rage a couple years ago. I don't know if they still are, but I'm done with them. Whenever we make changes to a plant, we don't know how the chemical makeup of nectar, pollen, and leaves will change. And observing how this affects insects, for example, needs to be studied far more and region by region. In general, early studies seem to support that cultivars selected for shorter or taller heights don't influence insect use. That's either adults or larvae eating the leaves. However, changes in flower color will likely negatively impact adult pollinators. Flowers with double blooms are a big no-no. So there's a lot we don't know. So why not try to stick with straight species when you can? That's an argument that some of us will already agree with, and some of us will need a little bit more convincing, and that's what the rest of this lecture is all about. I did find this study on prairie grasses and restoration, which came to this conclusion. Regionally developed cultivars may be a suitable alternative to local ecotypes for restoration in fragmented landscapes with limited gene flow between natural and restored prairie and negligible recruitment by seed. Okay, let me see if I can put this in English for you a little bit. So I live out here in Nebraska where we do a lot of prairie restoration. And whenever I'm designing a garden, I'm totally cognizant I am not restoring a prairie in an urban or suburban environment. That's never going to happen. It barely happens out in rural areas, but the parameters are almost simpler in some ways. So in an urban area, it is highly altered, right? It's very unlikely that you have native virgin or even old restored prairie that's 100 years old anywhere near you. That's going to be a little bit different when you get outside of the city, usually. So if your concern is restoring the natural environment around you and making sure that you don't pollute wild landscapes around you with genetics of plants that are not adapted to the local area and that might change the genetics of the native wild species around you, you have to be aware of what you're planting. So in an urban area, go ahead and plant these cultivars. I'm saying that with a really big asterisk, right? Because we've already seen that different cultivars, it depends, right? Double flowered coneflowers, no. Purple leaves, no. When we change the petal color, that's problematic because you can be changing the UV markings on the flower that helps pollinators, especially bees, understand the floral resources or even to see the flower. That's something I would love to see studied more, those UV markings on petals. Now, we will never have all the answers because there's not enough interest or money to do regional local studies and to keep up with them, especially as the climate faces further disruption. Every 10 years, those USD hardiness zones are, they're redone and they're creeping north. We used to be in zone 5A, now we're in 5B. In another 10 years, we'll probably be in 6A. It's moving that fast. It's going north. Warming is moving north and warming is moving uphill. And species are eventually just going to lose ground and have nothing left. Again, in a consumer capitalist-based society, demand is going to drive supply. So what are you going to demand? Not just at the nursery, but also of your elected officials or of your community. Where we're talking about cultivars right now because you care about supporting wildlife. That's why you're listening to me ramble on right now. So all of this action, all of this activism, it starts in your garden, but it quickly spreads beyond your garden, right? So what are you going to demand of your family, of your neighbors, of your city as a whole? How much lawn can we take away, right?